Sindhuvaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Aradhya Bhagavan Brajesh Tanayas Tadhama Vrindavanam Ramya Kachidupasana Brajavadhu Vargena Vakalpita Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanamavanam Prema Pumartho Mahan Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhur Matamidam Tatra Dharana Paraha Anarpita Charim Chirat Karunayavatirna Kalau Samarpayitum Munnatojvala Rasam Swabhakti Shriyam Hari Purata Sundara Dyuti Kadamba Sandipita Sada Hridaya Kandare Suratu Vasachi Nandana Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jagat Mangala Dvaita Mangala Gunadham Mangala Charitra Sada Mangala Jarana.
Hare Krishna. We welcome all of our YouTube Live listeners, our listeners over Facebook Live, and our dear listeners over Zoom. Welcome to all of you to this day 28 of Sri Gauramrita. Before we continue further, we would like to announce and congratulate the participants of the quiz session from yesterday. We'd like to congratulate Hari Prasad Prabhu, Mother Flavia, Vrinda Gopika Mataji, Radha Mataji, and Ranjani Gopika. Thank you to all of you for your continued, sincere, and dedicated participation in the quiz session every day. Thank you.
So today in session 28, we will continue to describe the transcendental treasure trove of Vishvambhar's youthful pastimes. Today, we will discuss the glorious passing away of Srimati Lakshmi Priya Devi. The snake bite of separation that takes away the life of Srimati Lakshmi Priya, and how Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu pacifies the grief-stricken Saci Mata. And then we will conclude our session today by describing the Phala Stuti, the benefits we receive by listening to these glorious pastimes of Sri Gaura Hari. So we start with Adi Leela chapter 16, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in his Chaitanya Charitamrita very painstakingly describes the snake bite of separation, which takes the life of Srimati Lakshmi Priya Devi. Hey Mata Bange Prabhu, Kore Nana Leela, Ethala Vadipe Lakshmi, Virahe Dukhi Hoila. Because the Lord was engaged in various work in East Bengal, his wife Lakshmi Devi was very unhappy at home in separation from her husband. Prabhu Raviraha Sarpa Lakshmi Redam Shila Viraha Sarpa Visheta Paraloka Hoila. The snake of separation bit Lakshmi Devi in its poison. caused her death. Thus she passed to the next world. She went back home, back to Godhead. Antare janila Prabhu, jate antaryami, deshera aila Prabhu, Saci dukha jani. Lord Chaitanya, he knew about the disappearance of Lakshmi Devi because he is the super soul himself. Thus he returned home to solace his mother Saci Devi, who was greatly unhappy about the death of her daughter-in-law. Now let's see what Sri Lochan Das Thakur in his Chaitanya Mangal describes this pastime of the snake bite of separation. Now, she did not leave her body by snake bite. Many times when devotees hear this, they feel, oh, Lakshmi Devi was bit by a snake. No, here the word that is used, the phrase by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is Viraha Sarpa. So Viraha Sarpa is the snake bite of separation. So out of separation, she left her body, or left this world in one sense. So Sri Lochandas Thakur, he continues, in Navadvip, Lakshmi Devi, her heart was fully dedicated to Lord Vishvambhar. She was very faithful, very happily. She was serving Srimati Saci Mata. She would regularly clean the house. Yesterday, we also saw how she would worship the family deities with perfumes, incense, ghee lamps, flower garlands, sandalwood pulp. And Saci Devi, she would just forget her distress and become content because of the sweet behavior of her daughter-in-law. Lakshmi Devi also loved to be in the company of Srimati Saci Mata, and both of them were peacefully living together. But alas, who can impede the will of providence?
Lochan Das continues to say that Lakshmi Devi's heart continually burned in the painful separation from her beloved Lord Gauranga. One day, Lochan Das Thakur says that this viraha, this separation, actually took the form of a snake and bit Lakshmi Priya. So it is Lochan Das Thakur who was mentioning a little bit different from, not little bit, but it is just going into a little more detail that how did Lakshmi Priya actually leave? That she was bitten by, the separation. It's not that a physical snake actually came and bit her or something like that, but it is actually that the separation took the form of a snake and came and bit Lakshmi Priya. And Saci Mata, she panicked and she called for the snake charmer, the mantra, the snake doctors who could come and they could neutralize the the venom. And none of the cures of this snake doctor could cure Lakshmi Priya Devi because it was not an ordinary snake that bit Lakshmi Priya Devi. So as Lakshmi Priya Devi was going to the end of her life, she was brought by the relatives and Saci Mata, she was brought to the banks of the river Ganges.
And then on the bank of Ganges, tulsi beads were wrapped around her neck, and everyone chanted the Lord's holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. No one could understand that Lakshmi Devi now would go to the Lord's eternal abode. But then suddenly, a celestial chariot, just surrounded by Gandharvas, were singing so sweetly, descended from the sky to pick her up. And Lakshmi Devi chanted the name of Hari and went to Vaikuntha. Everyone was just amazed at seeing the sight. What just happened? Saci Mata, all the women of Nadia, they cried piteously as they remembered the good qualities of Lakshmi Devi.
So here in this incident, we can see that even 500 years ago, the people, they had this faith that if we do and lead a pious life, if we lead a devoted life, then the spiritual world opens up So it was not that they were shocked, or it was not so amazing for them that a chariot came for Lakshmi Priya Devi. It seemed as if they have witnessed such a thing, or they've heard about such things happening. It was not something like a miracle that was happening in front of them, but it happened right in front of their eyes, that a celestial chariot came and took Lakshmi Priya Devi back home, back to the spiritual world.
And then Mother Saci, all the women of Nadia, tears were streaming down their eyes and their saris were getting wetted. And they were exhaling hot breath. They were hitting their foreheads with their palms. They were expressing their deep lamentation. Ah, Lakshmi Devi, your nature and qualities, they are equal to the goddess of fortune. She had no match in the whole city of Nadia. Everyone was saying this. And Sachi Devi, she wept while saying, how can I go back to my house now alone? Who will worship our family deities? Who will care for me? From today on, my house is empty and void. Vishvambhar, why did you leave, O sinful snake of separation? Where have you gone? Why didn't you bite me instead of my wonderful daughter-in-law? My son left his wife behind, traveled to a distant country just so that he could serve me. Now, how can I bear to look at my son's face with my heart burning in separation from my daughter-in-law? The way Sachi Devi was bereaving, her friends tried to pacify her with comforting words. They said, Sachi Mata, no one can change their destiny. This body, the whole material existence, is just an illusion. Why aren't you listening to our words of consolation? Everyone must die one day, even the greatest demigods. They go to Lord Brahma, but they have to meet their destruction. For one who is born, death is certain. Either death may be in the youth or in old age. And from the Vedas, we know that Krishna is the only truth. One who doesn't serve the Supreme Lord Krishna is certainly a fool. And after consoling Sachi Devi, all her friends chanted the holy names in order to check their tears. Everyone was just Hari, 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 Hari. They were consoling Sachi Mata, but they were crying on their own as well.
Just imagine. We can imagine how painful a situation it must be for Sachi Mata. Sachi Mata lost. First, Vishwarup left home. Then her husband, Sri Jagannath Mishra, left this world. She was only alive by looking at the lotus face of Vishvambhar, of Nimai. And then Nimai, she got him married to Lakshmi Priya Devi. Now Lakshmi Priya Devi also has died. So now she's thinking that Nimai is not here. Now when he comes back, what am I going to say to him? How can I say that your wife is no longer here? So Sachi Mata was so much grief stricken. She just did not know what to do, how to react to this. She was just crying and cursing that snake. She was cursing everyone. She was just saying, what is happening? How can all this cruelty be happening to me? But she never doubted. She never said, why is this kind of thing happening? That she never said, why, Krishna, I am serving you so nicely. Why did you give me this kind of misery? She never said that. She never doubted. She was going through the grief, of course. She is going through the grief, but she did not ask for an explanation from Krishna. This is the sign of a pure devotee. That it's not that when we become pure devotees, that we will not have any emotions at all, that we will not feel, tears, or we'll not feel any emotions, we will not feel happy, we will not be sad. No, it's not that every situation we say, Hari Hari. Oh, there's a death in the family. Hari Hari. Oh, there's a birth in the family. Hari Hari. No, that's artificial. That is very, very artificial. But rather we must express our heart and at the same time learn how to depend on Krishna at every stage of it. That is the secret to becoming a pure devotee.
Meanwhile, in East Bengal, Vishvambhar, he was teaching the disciples, and then he returned home very joyfully. Ma, ami eshe gechi. I've come home. I've come back home very, very, very joyfully. He arrived home very enthusiastically. Vishvambhar paid respects to his mother and looked at her face very affectionately. And Saci Devi was standing speechless with a saddened face. Again, Gaura touched her feet, but still no response. He was hoping that Sachi Mata would pick him up and embrace him, but no response. Then Vishvambhar asked, Mother, why is your face so upset? It burns my heart to look at you so sad. And when Vishvambhar uttered those words, tears poured down her eyes. It was moistening her sari, and her voice choked up as Sachimata said, my daughter-in-law has gone to Vaikuntha. She has gone to Vaikuntha. Hearing this, Gaura's heart just sank to the depths of misery. His eyes, they were filled with tears of compassion. What? He said, Mother. He composed himself and he said, look, Mother, listen to me. I'll tell you a story about why Lakshmi Devi took birth. In fact, one time in the heavenly palace of Indra, there was an Apsara who used to dance. And by the arrangement of providence, she made a mistake while dancing and broke her rhythm. And then Indra became upset and cursed her to take birth as a human. And then after that, Indra started feeling sorry. Oh, she was only trying to please me. And just because she broke a rhythm in one step, I cursed her. So Indra said, don't be sad. Don't be sad. You will take birth as a human, but you know what? You will get a chance to serve the Lord in his earthly pastime. I've cursed you, but I also bless you to become his wife at that time. So Gaura, he said, Vishvambhar, my wife Lakshmi Devi already told me about this, that she is my consort. So don't lament, for no one can change the will of providence. If it has to happen, it has to happen. And so Sachi Mata, she heard the son's words with great attention. She stopped thinking about it. And because she saw the composure of Vishvambhar, even though Vishvambhar was broken-hearted, but he had to maintain his composure for his dear mother, Sachi Mata. Just like Lord Ramachandra was so broken-hearted and desperately seeking in separation of his wife Sita, Sri Gaura Rai also was feeling the same emotions internally, but in this particular pastime, he had to maintain his composure for his mother Sachi Mata. And as a result, Sachi Mata stopped thinking about it and gave up all her lamentation. This is how it is described by Lochan Das Thakur, the wonderful story of Lakshmi Devi's ascending to Vaikuntha.
So here a question could be asked that, so is Lakshmi Devi really Lakshmi Priya? Was she really the Apsara from the heavenly planets? Why not? She's an expansion of the goddess of fortune. And, for playing this special role, she has come. So, but now she did not go back to Indra's Loka. The thing to understand is that she has actually gone back home, back to Godhead, to Vaikuntha, in her original position, to her original position. So we should not have any doubt in our mind that is a particular pastime. And this is the way that even Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu consoled his mother, in this particular way, by revealing to her, this particular incident. So we should not have any kind of doubt in our minds in that sense. So now let's see what Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur is speaking in his Chaitanya Bhagavat in Adi Leela chapter 14. He also describes the glorious passing away of Srimati Lakshmi Devi. But the way he has described it is a little different. So let us see how Vrindavan Das Thakur has explained the glorious passing away of Srimati Lakshmi Priya Devi. Vrindavan Das Thakur says, Lakshmi Devi in Navadvip, while Gauranga Mahaprabhu was in Bangladesh, in East Bengal, Lakshmi Devi was feeling utter pangs of separation from her beloved Lord. She never spoke of it to anybody. She did not reveal her heart even to Saci Mata, nor about her loneliness. She spoke about it to nobody. But she was just in her own self. She was just keeping it in her own self that she was feeling so much separation from her beloved Lord. She served Mother Sachi very, very lovingly, but she reduced her own eating almost to nothing after the Lord left Navadvip. So this is how she, maintained her. She never ate anything. So bereft of the Lord's company, she silently suffered. She would cry alone throughout each night, trying to suppress the restlessness which was welling up in her heart. And unable to bear the pain of separation any further from the Supreme Lord, from her beloved Lord, Srimati Lakshmi Priya Devi, the eternal consort of Lord Gauranga, left her transcendental body behind and went secretly to meet her Lord. This is how Vrindavan Das Thakur explains. Just see the mood with which Vrindavan Das Thakur is revealing this, that she left her transcendental body behind and secretly went to meet her beloved Lord. Where? To Vaikuntha. She went back to God. And then, lying down on the bank of the Ganges, Lakshmi Devi fixed her mind on the lotus feet of Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu, and within her heart went deep into meditation and never to return again. So here in Chaitanya Bhagavat, Vrindavan Das Thakur is not at all talking about the snake. He just is saying that she felt separation, and thus she just, out of her own accord, she left her body. And Mother Sachi, she was in deep shock, in tremendous grief, which is indescribable. Her pitiable lamentations could have melted stones, Vrindavan Das Thakur says. And Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur is also saying one very, very important point. He says that I am incapable of describing the mellow of sadness, the viraha rasa, or the vilapa rasa, the sadness mellow, experienced by Mother Sachi. So therefore, I will not go into the details of that scene where Mother Sachi was lamenting for her daughter. But I will simply mention some incidences as references, Vrindavan Das Thakur says.
So it's said that the devotees, saintly Vaishnavas, they were also grief-stricken by this news. And then they all came forward to complete the necessary rituals. In the meantime, the Lord reached Navadvip in the evening. He had all those gifts from East Bengal for Saci Mata, for Lakshmi Priya. And as soon as he came, he kept those gifts down and he paid obeisances to his mother's lotus feet, then showed her all the gifts that he has brought, first to the mother, and then he, after that, he offered his obeisances at the mother's lotus feet, gave her the gifts, and went to Ganga with his students to bathe. Now, Mother Sachi, till now, she had not broken this news to Gauranga. Her heart was breaking with pain, but somehow Mother Sachi just busied herself preparing a meal for her son, because he'll come back from Ganges after taking bath and he'll be very hungry. He has come from a long place, long travel. Nimai Pandit, then he completed his bath, he returned home and performed his daily rituals and sat down to eat. Shri Gaura Hari, the Lord of all the Vaikuntha planets, he ate with great satisfaction and then went to temple room directly. One by one, his relatives came forward to greet him after his long absence. Till now, no one broke to him this news. They sat around him. He joked and he laughed. He described his stay in Bangladesh, and none of them were mentioning the passing away of Lakshmi Devi, knowing that this would be a big shock and grief to the Lord. So then the relatives, after some time, they all returned their homes. The Lord, he sat quietly. He was chewing on his betel pan after his dinner. And Mother Saci was avoiding to meet the Lord. She stayed in her room because she was so much affected by the pain of Lakshmi Priya's death. Then Nimai went to see, why is the house so quiet? Where is Sachi Mata? He went into her room, and Nimai found that his mother had marks of deep sorrow which were lining her face. And then Nimai said, Ma, what is the reason? Why are you in so much sorrow? I have returned from my journey. I'm in good health. See, I'm feeling very happy. Why are you should be happy? But why am I seeing this sadness? Please tell me the truth. What is the reason?
And hearing these words of Nimai, Sachi Mata wept more uncontrollably. She was weeping and weeping and weeping. And she was just unable to speak, just not able to speak. And then Nimai just said, very near, he went to his mother and he said, Ma, Ami shob jani. Ma, I know everything. Said Nimai, tell me what has happened to your daughter-in-law. This was the question that he asked. He knew that this has happened. Then at that time, some of the relatives who had not yet left, they stepped forward and they told Gaura Rai about the passing away of Srimati Lakshmi Priya Devi. And the Supreme Lord Sri Gaura Hari, he just stood silent, casting his head down. He had his head down and he just was contemplating about the death of his eternal consort and his beloved wife, Srimati Lakshmi Priya Devi.
And he allowed that pain of separation to engulf him. He tried to experience those emotions quietly. And he was the personification of all Vedic truths. He is. But he remained silent. And like any ordinary human being, he displayed the emotions of deep sorrow within himself. But he controlled himself and he said, because of bodily attachment, one is regarded as a husband, as a son, but these are just illusory relationships that are caused by misunderstandings. Oh mother, oh ma, why do you feel sad? How can you hope to change which is ordained by the Lord's desire? This is the verdict of the Vedas. Why should these arrangements from the Supreme Lord make you so unhappy? It is fortunate for the wife if she can leave before her husband. Look at the positive in that. How fortunate Lakshmi Devi was, Lakshmi Priya is. And this is the proof that she was a very pious woman. So please don't lament in this way. And he, in these words, he tried to console his mother, these philosophical truths. And just by, not just the words, but by the way Sri Gaura Rai were expressing these words, these philosophical truths with conviction and empathy, everyone felt that the veil of sadness was dissipating by these soothing words of Gaura Rai. And in this way, the Lord of Vaikuntha, Sri Gaura Hari, he continued to perform these wonderful pastimes in the mood of the scholar Nimai Pandit.
Hari Hari Bol.
So we heard today the wonderful, glorious passing away of Srimati Lakshmi Priya Devi from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Sri Chaitanya Mangal, and Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat. So what is the Phala Stuti? It is said, anyone who listens to this glorious passing away of Srimati Lakshmi Priya Devi, what happens to such person? Never gets bitten by the snake of separation from Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu, and always remains united and blissful in the service of Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu ki ekhane rohila grantha Amrita Lahari badan bhore ekbar bolo Hari Hari.
Hare Krishna. So today we will dedicate our kirtan to our regular devotees whom we have been praying for Shivani Mataji and her family, for Anjudi's family, for Flavier Mataji and her family, for Radha from Hyderabad and her family, for Keshavi from Hyderabad and her family, for Shweta Manjari and her group members, and also for Lavanya Mataji, Uday Prabhu and Vishruta, their daughter. We pray for them. And we also pray for our very dear Nutan Purohit Mataji. So today's kirtan is dedicated to each and every one of these devotees and for other devotees as well. Hare Krishna.
Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachari Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshadari Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Krishna
Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Let us all try to immerse in the mood of separation from Sri Lakshmi Priya Devi, who went to meet her Lord of Vaikuntha. Jai Shri Lakshmi Priya Devi ki,
Jai.
Shri Gauranga Mahaprabhu ki,
Jai.
Shri Saci Mata Devi ki,
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki,
Jai.
Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki.
Jai. Hare Krishna. Before we open up our lines, let's take the questions for today. Okay.
First, what is the phrase used by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami for the disappearance of Lakshmi Priya Devi? Second, how did Lakshmi Priya Devi actually leave this world?
Third, what is the sign of a pure devotee? Fourth, what is the explanation given by Vishvambhar about the birth of Lakshmi Priya Devi?
Fifth, is Lakshmi Priya Devi really an Apsara from heavenly planets? Sixth, how did Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur explains about the disappearance of Lakshmi Priya Devi?
Why did Vishvambhar say that Lakshmi Priya Devi is fortunate? Eighth, what is the Phala Stuti of hearing the disappearance of Lakshmi Priya Devi? Thank you so much, Ranjani Gopika, for these wonderful quiz questions.
So now let's open the lines for questions or comments. Any questions, comments?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji Mataji, Dandavad Pranam. All
Hare
glories to Srila Prabhupada Guru Gauranga and Nityananda. Thank you so much for your session. It is very, very beautiful. I really enjoyed. Prabhu, I have one question. Okay, like it's a simple thing only. Don't mistake me. We are comparing, right, Prabhu, Lord Chaitanya with the moon. The faces look like a moon, and compared to lotus feet to lotus, right? So is it compared to the lotus and moon in this material world are the same will be existing in the spiritual world also? Because Lord's body is a transcendental nature, right? So it cannot be compared to the material thing, right? So that's what I have a question.
Yes, very nice question. You are correct. The Lord's attributes cannot be compared to anything in this material world, and he is transcendental. And because he cannot be compared to anything in the material world, how can we describe him to those who are in this material world? So people like us, we don't have, or we don't remember the experience in the spiritual world. All we have experience of is something in this material world. So in order to explain to people in the material world, the Shastras and the Acharyas have to use the examples from this material world. When you look at the moon, how soothing you feel how bright, right? Yes, we say, yes, that's true. That's the closest description that you can come to describing the Lord. That's how he was. So then we are able to, our limited mind and imagination is able to then project it. Oh, that's how, okay. If he would say, oh, if they would describe saying, oh, the way that the wonderful effulgence is in the spiritual world and how it is in so many different ways, we would be like, it doesn't make sense. What do you mean? So they are trying their best to describe as close as possible. Of course, the Lord is much more beautiful than the moon, but that's how we understand it, and we understand how the moon gives soothing to everyone in the same way. Similarly, the lotus, we know that lotus, even though it is in the muddy water, but it is still fragrant and it grows very beautifully. So similarly, when we compare the Lord's attributes to lotus, means he is in this material world, but don't mistake him that he is of this material world. Just like a lotus is in the muddy water, but it's not muddy. So Lord is not affected, just like the lotus, by this material world. That's what they are trying to. And also lotus is beautiful. It's a beautiful flower. When you look at it, the feeling and the experience that we get when we touch its petals, that's the closest in the material world that you can describe of the indescribable features of the Lord. So it's for us that they are doing that. If they start speaking in the language of the spiritual world, we'll be all lost. We won't know what he's really talking about.
Yeah. Yes, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu. That is clear, Prabhu. Thank you so much for your explanation. And thank you for your narration for Srimad Bhagavatamrita, right? Bhagavatamrita. So I'm just hearing daily basis, because I didn't attend last year. It is very, very wonderful, Prabhu. You both are narrating very well. I'm not missing daily. I'm hearing one daily basis. Thank you so much for your wonderful session, everything. Hare Krishna. Take care of your health, Prabhuji and Mataji.
If you have any questions regarding those, please do message us and we'd be very
Yeah.
happy to respond.
Yeah, definitely.
And
Definitely.
if you like them, please pray for us, so we may also develop some taste for hearing and chanting, and continue this service without restriction.
Yeah, definitely, Prabhu. Daily I'm praying. You are in my prayers in morning and evening. Daily I'm doing that. God, thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much, Prabhuji and Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Nikunja Leela Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you for very lovely pastime. Mataji and Prabhuji, I have a question like why it is said that the passing of a wife before her husband is due to her pious credits? Because generally it's not in our hand. Like, so what is the reason? Yeah.
That's true. It is not in our hand. But the reason why, the husband is considered to be the one who is giving shelter to the wife. Like, for the woman, it is said that the girls are always under the protection of the father till their marriage. Then during their marriage, they're under the protection of their husband. Then later on, they're under the protection of their grown sons or the spiritual master or a elderly relative. Like, so for a woman to stay without the husband is a challenge. It is a difficult situation. It's a very difficult situation in terms of society, in terms of managing things, in terms of responsibilities. It's a lot of challenge. Therefore, the Shastras actually proclaim that if a wife is able to leave her body before her husband, it is very, very auspicious, because that way she doesn't have to go through the hardships, of staying alone and suffering alone in this material. So because she has served her husband very faithfully, she goes to the spiritual world and she waits for her husband to come there and join so that they can continue their service to Krishna in that way. So that is how it is described.
Yeah.
Hare
Lovely
Krishna,
explanation,
Mataji.
Mataji. Thank you.
Sorry, Mataji, continuation to that question, what Mataji asked. But now practically we feel like if wife leaves before the husband is suffering a lot, Mataji, practically now in Kali Yuga. So what to say for that, Mataji? They could not handle, the sense they could not handle by themselves.
See, both cannot handle. It is difficult, in the absence of the other, because that is what partners are meant to be. They're meant to stay together. And when one partner, whether it be the wife or the husband, if they leave, it is a challenge for the one who's staying back. There's no doubt about it. But it is more of a challenge for the woman to survive alone than for the man to survive alone. But it is a challenge. It is definitely a challenge, even for the husband to survive. It is a challenge. There's no doubt about that. It is not easy. It's not easy.
Yeah. Thank you, Mataji. Thank you
Yeah,
for
thank you, Mataji and Prabhuji. Yeah, thank you, Mataji. Wonderful session, Mataji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Harima?
Hare Krishna, Mataji and Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Beta.
Prabhupada and Gurudev. I loved your class, and it was kind of a separation like that. And yeah, I also loved it how you explained everything today. Now I have a question. Like, why did Lakshmi Priya left? Because like Gauranga was there and like that. So why did she leave? Because our Lord is like everywhere.
That's true. That is true. But the Lord also wanted to, exhibit a few pastimes, that what happens, the glories of Lakshmi Devi. Lakshmi Priya Devi was also established here by the Lord himself, like the residents of Nadia could see that the celestial airplane came for her and took her back to the spiritual world. So that was a great display that the Lord wanted to show to everyone, that what happens when you faithfully serve the husband very nicely. What is the destination of such a wife? Lord wanted to show that. And the Lord also wanted to show that, his pastimes with Vishnu Priya Devi needed to be enacted. So therefore, in tomorrow's session, we will see how Vishnu Priya Devi came into the life of Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu and her life. How was she exemplifying how a devoted wife should also be when the husband leaves home and takes sannyas? How should a wife be exemplified in that? So Lord Chaitanya wanted to show both. He wanted to show both aspects. So that's the arrangement of the Leela of the Lord.
Okay, Mataji, I understood that part because I didn't really understand that much. So thank you.
Tomorrow nicely, because tomorrow we will be going on the wedding procession of Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu going to wed Vishnu Priya. So tomorrow we will have a nice wedding party, nice festival tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you, Mataji. I do this like this is Lord Krishna's feet. I am little bit in the process. I'm not really done.
Yeah, once you do it, beta, please take a picture. It's so beautiful. Take a picture, send us, okay?
Okay.
Thank you, Bacha. Love you so much. Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
Hari Bol, beta. Any other questions?
Okay, if there are no more questions, we can end here. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Wow.
Hare Krishna Gurudev Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna
Mataji.
Hare
Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna Mataji Prabhuji.
Hare
Krishna Mataji Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna Mataji Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam. Mataji Prabhuji.
Jai Shri Radhe.
Dandavat Pranam, Surya and Spurti. Hare Bol beta.
Hare Krishna Mataji Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam. Jai Shri Radhe.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Hare Bol. Thank you for a wonderful class.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you Mataji.
Thank you for the wonderful session, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Varshana Chitra Mataji.
Hare
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam.
Jai, thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you for the wonderful class, Mataji.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna Mataji and Prabhuji, wonderful class. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Hare Krishna.